I was thinking it was just me that had a problem, but it turns out it's the air conditioning that's sexist.
I know. So many women in our office have the exact same problem. You know, we just sit there absolutely freezing at our desks trying to type. You can probably tell I've got a cold right now, which I blame all on the AC. And so it's just so actually quite nice to see this research. It's just such a relief to know that there's actually proof that this is happening, that women, you know, do feel the cold more than men, and that the AC in offices is normally regulated more for a male's temperature than a woman's.
The title of this video is Why Office Air Conditioner is Sexist. The very thought that this is a conversation that is happening purely and utterly mocks our existence as human beings on this planet. I don't know if you guys even picked up on this as well, but did you guys see what she calls herself? Telegraph's Wonder Woman writer. Really? Y'all over there calling each other Wonder Woman? That's worse than calling all women queens. Call them all Wonder Women for existing, writing, and having a job. Complete and utter bullshit. But let's get back in.
And it's an explanation for these constant battles you'll see in offices right across the country between the sexes for control of that office thermostat.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, one of the biggest problems is that often in offices, it is men who control temperatures. You know, that's just something I've found anecdotally. And
she's a
because
fool.
the majority of the men in offices seem to be absolutely fine with the temperatures, you know, women kind of just sit there on the corner feeling absolutely frozen. And, you know, often, like, actually nothing's being done to help them. And, you know, it might sound like a bit of a silly, light-hearted issue, but actually
silly.
It's really uncomfortable being freezing at your desk every day.
Put on a jacket. Go in there with some long sleeves on. Put some pants on. Do things to fix your situation as opposed to just complain about this shit. What? If a man yawns, a feminist will be complaining that he's taking all the air away from her. Just imagine the first word privilege of even being able to argue about the temperature in an office when there are homeless people outside without access to thermostats. Being a feminist is a first world privilege. If you drop a feminist in a third world country, complaining about the temperature in the office will be the last things on their minds. Let's proceed.
Take it from me.
No, I know I experience the same, because what I've often found is you go in on a really hot summer's day, you're wearing summer clothes, you go into an office and it's absolutely freezing. I think even for some men it must be too cold. I don't understand why air conditioning is often so cold. So what you have to do is then take a jumper in with you and put that jumper on in order to be able to function.
Sure.
Yeah. Honestly, I think so many women listening now are going to just be nodding their heads thinking, yes, that is exactly my reality. You know,
she's a problem. Yeah, because the newscaster said even men experience cold offices. And then she responds back, oh, so many women, You just like to make everything a woman's problem. I understand.
We joke at work that we actually can't dress fashionably anymore for summer because you actually just can't go in sandals. You can't go in a summer dress because you're going to have to put on the jumper or the emergency cardigan. So, yeah, it is quite frustrating, especially when you then go out on your lunch break or your commute home and you're absolutely boiling outside. And I think there is a bit of a problem when it's warmer outside than it is inside your office.
So what's the solution then? Because we can't have men overheating in the offices, can we?
No, I think we just need a bit more flexibility. You know, I think it is just essentially common sense. So if, you know, an office is noticing that a number of women are complaining about the cold, they need to be more flexible. You know, they need to actually kind of lower it and not just say, but, oh, the men are fine. You know, now there is actually proof that this is actually an issue. I think they need to kind of take women's considerations into account. And you know what, maybe there can be more flexibility with men not having to wear suits in some offices and they can come in T-shirts or whatever they need to be the right temperature.
It's called work attire for a reason, madame. And depending upon the type of office that you work in, it projects professionalism. But on the other hand, you are more worried about staying up with the summer fashion trends as opposed to being professional. Men have created such a fluffy society for these women that they're now complaining about the temperature in buildings, one of which they didn't build, and one of which also that they don't do hard or physical labor in. This is textbook first world problems, and I'm sure a problem that women would latch onto because it paints them as a victim of some patriarchy dominating the society today by any means necessary, as demonstrated by the office temperature. Give me a break.
Yeah, women are very good in high school, then they go to college, they're very good in college. They nail their damn grades, they do their studying, they get their A's, and they ace their LSAT, so they're smart too. Then they go off to do their articling and they're really, really good at it. And then they get offered an associate position and they're really, really good at it. And then by the time they're 30, they make partner. And let's say they're in high pressure, high paying jobs. $250,000 a year, $300,000 a year, $500 an hour. Okay, what's your life like? You work.
Yeah.
All the time.
All the time.
Period.
Yep.
70 hours a week, 75 hours a week.
Yep.
Flat out. And you don't get to make any mistakes.
Nope.
And if your client calls you at 3 in the morning on Monday,
You
on
answer.
Sunday, you say, I'm really glad to hear from you, because if you don't, there's some hot law firm in New York that'll take your client
Take the
from you at
business.
a moment's notice.
Facts.
And the client is paying you, whatever, the firm, $750 an hour, of which maybe you get $350, and what they want is an answer about something really complicated right bloody now.
Yep.
And you can say all you want about the fact that women have a difficult time with that because it's a male-dominant patriarchy. Any female lawyer who's hit 30 and is a partner that has any sense at all knows that's complete bloody rubbish. It's market determined right to the
Yep.
core. What happens to the women when they're in their 30s? They all leave the high-end law firms.
Yeah.
Why? Because who in their right mind would want to live like that?
Men.
That's the issue, right? Once you make about $60,000 a year for your family, but let's say for you personally, additional income has zero impact on your quality of life. Zero. So why work 80 hours a week? Well, men will do it. Some men, very few.
Yep, very few.
A handful of hyper-competitive men who are obsessed with hitting the pinnacle of the given dominance hierarchy they're in,
Yes.
will happily work 80 hours a week, and they'll forego everything else.
Yep.
Relationships, family, children, way in the second category. And so those men are often very difficult to live with too, because they're so obsessed with their career. It's hard to have a relationship with them. And maybe they don't have much of a relationship with their kids, but they're damn good at what they do. And part of that is they're smart and disciplined, and they'll work,
they work long.
non-stop
Yes.
all the time.
Yep.
It's like an obsession. And that's the sort of people who run things.
Yep.
Those are the people who run things. Well, they're often also disagreeable too, because you want to manage people? Really? They're not going to like you. You know, and it's not an easy thing to not be liked. And actually, if you're an agreeable person, and women are more agreeable than men, it's quite painful to be disliked. But if you're in a managerial and executive position, the probability that people are going to like you is quite low. Now, if you're a real son of a bitch, then they're going to dislike you more. But those positions are very stressful, partly because of the interpersonal dynamics, and they're also incredibly, incredibly competitive.
Just think about the brilliance of what Jordan Peterson just said. He just broke down how difficult that it is, how disciplined that you have to be, how hardworking that you have to be to become the top 1% of man. And because those men put in the work, they are the ones that run the world. Feminists have taken the tiny substrata of men that Jordan Peterson is referring to and have extrapolated that to all men. The reality is that not all men want to or can function at that level, but those that do pay a large price for it. But feminists have stolen a hardworking man's success and sacrifice and have weaponized it, with women being systematically oppressed.
Equality in the workplace is certainly an uphill battle for many women, so it may come as a surprise that more than 80% of women don't want to work for another woman. Well, why? Lucy Brogden joins us now to find out more. Good morning, Lucy.
Hi, Lucy. How are you? Welcome.
This is fascinating research. Tell us about this study.
Well, my study was quite anecdotal. I was doing career coaching a couple of years ago with men and women, broad range of backgrounds. And when you're doing that work, you say to people, what's the next job look like? And I suddenly got struck by the number of women that could articulate the companies they wanted to work for, the type of work, and then consistently they'd say, oh, by the way, I don't want to work for another woman. So I started to track these numbers, and we got to around 80%. I asked colleagues, and they were getting similar numbers. And I knew that was, a small, not very scientific sample. But if you go to the literature, there's huge studies all replicating these findings. Gallup in the US has actually tracked this for 60 years, and we're still not shifting the data too much, which is really a shame.
60 years they've been tracking that. Pay attention.
With in workplaces I've been in, there have been huge schisms between female employees and female bosses where it was pretty much an all-out Cold War. Like it was, and you know,
really?
not talking and
do you know why, Lucy?
Undermining.
Are there reasons given? Are they competitive with?
There's issues of competitiveness, I think, certainly, and you know, our stereotypes are quite primal. So I think it's really incumbent on women to continually check those. If we don't acknowledge behaviour, we can't change it. So new women coming into the workforce have to understand that just because they have a female boss, she's not their best friend. She's a boss. She's got a job to do and be a boss.
If we don't acknowledge bad behavior, then what can we do to change it? That needs to be the motto of the damn channel. You understand me? Let's proceed.
And one of the things was raised to me, you remember the surgeon Gabrielle McMullen who blew the whistle on sexism in the medical industry, and she talked about how often when you have an industry where there is actually so male dominated that if a woman cracks through and actually makes it to the top level, it's so rare and they feel so sort of lucky to have gotten there that they will actively undermine other women coming through because I think, well, I've made it and I've got the spot for the woman and that's it. I'm going to cut everyone off the legs.
I actually had a female manager that said that she did not like hiring women for her direct team. And that's because she said that she's had women on her team previously that produced more drama than work. She said it's not all, which of course logically that makes sense. But for where she was in her career, she didn't want to risk having a bad apple spoil the bunch. But me personally, if I was still climbing the ranks of corporate America, I would absolutely put women on my team. I would just have to go through extensive interview requirements and discussions the same way that I would do to men as well in order to vet the good people from the bad people. But I think conversations just like this one need to be had because you often don't hear this point of view because this level of truth does not appeal to a capitalistic democracy as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion organizations. But to make it more simple, what I think is actually happening here is how women find it hard or difficult to have other women friends, or at least harder than men find it to create male friends. But to each his own at the end of the day. Drop some comments down below if you guys have experience in working with men versus women. Let's go.
Hi, my name is Maya Milusheva. I'd like to start with a short introduction about myself. I'm a woman in IT, obviously. I'm a CEO of a quite profitable IT company. I'm a mother as well, so you would say I went through quite a lot in the IT industry. So I have the experience and authority to talk about this topic. Now, what I want to say is that the whole talk about women in IT is usually a bad thing for us. Because basically what it says is, well, it's okay to have lower income, it's okay to do worse than boys in the IT industry because, well, there's a world conspiracy against you, you know, people hate you, that's why.
Yeah,
so that's why I'm against the whole talk. Also, I did some recruiting because I have a company. And also I went to a school that had like 8 girls and 100 boys. So, you know, I'm quite used to being around a lot of boys. The whole thing is, girls are usually quite lazy. They're just not that good programmers. Sorry, but that's true, honestly. They just don't want to get their hands dirty to do the job. And when I tried to do some recruiting, I intentionally wanted to recruit women. And at the end, I failed to do so. Do you want to know why? Because most of those girls were usually just cheating, and they were just not good programmers.
She is definitely not a feminist.
At the end, I had to recruit boys. And that's why I think the whole talk about let's recruit more women is bad, because at the end, you're recruiting worse programmers. At the end, your company is going to suffer.
Damn.
You're gonna lose some money.
It's the market.
I know it's trendy to talk about women.
Look at them, they're confused.
But I think women should just start studying more and getting the job done. And I honestly don't see girls staying up until late at their office and working that often.
Oh.
No, it's usually boys staying there. Why? I don't know.
That's what Jordan was saying.
That's what I want to say. I think the whole lecture should be removed, and I think it's just bullshit.
Men like working with objects and women like working with people. Why do y'all think on social media there's all these relationship channels, that's dominated by women viewers? But that's how you can have the Kardashians creating a media empire with no talent, but then you have Elon Musk that builds Teslas. And I'm not saying that women are not valued in society. They're actually very needed. But when relating the things that they actually want to do with their lives versus the physical strength needed to create infrastructure or the discipline needed to work a dirty job or the want to work with objects that will progress technologies in lieu of building relationships, one must really consider the depth of calling men and women equal when men are typically more inclined to fare far more well than women in these same areas. Questions, comments, concerns? Y'all already know what to do. Mediocre tutorials and reviews at gmail.com. You guys enjoyed today's content? I think that I did. It was a pretty good video. You got any questions for me? If you don't agree with me, like, dislike, whatever it is you want to do, make sure that you go down in the comment section and let me know, include a timestamp so I know exactly which component of the video that you are speaking about. All right? Until next time, YouTube, peace.